Almost every day.
Hello,
Almost every
entrepreneurship.
day. There's always something, and there's always, I'd say there are moments where I do wonder, like, what am I doing and why? I get disturbed hearing how AI becomes people's friends. That's not what it is. Companies forget that companies are made of people, right? Customers are people, your employees are people, and without customers, the lights don't stay on. I walk around perpetually confused all day. I swear,
Mhm,
I go into meetings and I just go, I don't understand or I'm
mhm.
confused. And I swear everyone's wonders, how does she exist? I think a challenging line we've been fed is like the idea that the world works for you. And I
Mm,
found it lightened my load to let that
mhm.
go.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to our weekly Power Lounge. This is your place to hear authentic conversations from those who have power to share. My name is Amy Vaughan, and I am the owner and Chief Empowerment Officer of Together Digital, a diverse and collaborative community of women who choose to share their knowledge, power, and connections. You can join the movement at togetherindigital.com. Here's what I love about today's guest. She has built something that has lasted more than 2 decades, and she did it by paying attention to the things that most people overlook. Mary Brodie is the founder and digital experience strategist at Gearmark, a consultancy where she has grown for over 20 years across apps, websites, content strategies, lead generation, and full digital experience design. But what sets Mary apart most is that she doesn't just care about the customer experience. She works just as hard on what's happening inside of organizations. She partners with leaders to help them get clear on their vision, communicate to their teams, and build the kind of collaboration that actually sticks. Mary studied at MIT, holds a BA and an MA from Simmons College, and has earned an executive master's in corporate communications from IE University in Madrid. And if that wasn't enough, she is currently pursuing her doctorate. Holla, holla. Yay for research approval today. Big news. We'll chat about that at Case Western Reserve University, where her research explores how B2B buying teams build relationships with supplier people, salespeople, which tells you everything about how deeply she thinks about the human dynamic behind business decisions. She brings serious intellectual rigor to deeply human work, which is what we love. And today she's about to bring both into the conversation about acceptance, listening, and finding it more easy in work and life. Mary, welcome to the Power Lounge.
Thank you, Amy. It's awesome to be here.
All right, Mary, you have spent 20 plus years building one thing that is increasingly rare. What was the moment or the season in which you almost didn't keep going? And what did you tell yourself that made the difference?
So I'll be honest, almost every day.
Hello,
Almost every
entrepreneurship.
day. There's always something, and there's always I'd say there are moments where I do wonder, like, what am I doing and why? And usually, what brings me back is my clients and watching what they're achieving and what they're able and how they're able to engage with their customers better, or we are able to have a breakthrough in some way.
Mhm.
um I'd say that's really what keeps me going and
Mhm.
keeps me working on what I'm working on, and keeps me driven, but it's every day.
Every day. No, it's so true. I think I joke oftentimes and say like entrepreneurship and running your own business is kind of like a marriage. It's like a choice every day. You wake up and you're like, I could just quit. I could just quit. But no, like you choose to keep showing up. You choose to keep going. Or like my friend Crystal, who owns 2 businesses, often says, I just quit every day. And then I decide to come back and rehire myself.
What I think we don't realize is that you could go off and work for someone else, but then you
Hmm.
look at how they're control, and this is the way I saw it, and this is why I started going off on my own, right?
Hmm.
They're controlling your employment, right? And
Hmm.
they're making that decision. And in today's world, um, the reasons why you can be let go
Hmm.
can be trivial
Oh,
almost.
absolutely. Yeah.
So at least you have more control over your life and where you're
Hmm.
going with it.
Yeah.
And I think one of the things too that I enjoy, being on being like in my own business is, um, I know that my clients have other choices and why they're
Mm-hmm.
choosing me, if that makes
Yeah.
sense. So
Yeah.
every day is almost like when people who work in companies will tell me like, oh, well, what about a performance review? I'm like, that's every day
Yeah.
because they
Yeah.
could choose someone else, right? They don't
Mm-hmm.
have to come back. Even mid-project, they could say, we've had enough of you.
Right. Mm-hmm.
But they don't, right? And they
Yeah.
stick around for actually, in some cases with clients, a long, long time. So.
That's great. That's fantastic. Another thing that you share in common with a lot of our community is that continued education and constant learning mindset, which I think is fantastic. And you've clearly, as I read before, have invested a lot in your education across the stretch of your career, whether it was MIT, Simmons, and then the master's in Madrid, now your PhD. What is it that you're searching for each time you go back to further educate yourself?
Yeah. So, I first got the master's because I originally wanted to be an academic. And I couldn't determine what I wanted to focus on for a PhD at the time. And my advisor said to me, you need to get a job. And after the
Mm.
shock of like, oh, I got to get a job, right? I have to go in the real world. Oh my God, what's that,
Right?
right?
So scary.
um, but, I didn't realize at the time because at the time, a lot of people told me like, oh, a master's in English. What can you do with that? And
Mm-hmm.
I have to say, I use it every day.
Oh, yeah.
Like, we're told that the world is based on, and yes, it is, it's bottom line and numbers and all that, but stories and
Mm-hmm.
storytelling. And that's
Yeah.
where I kind of see, what a master's of English can do for you, right? And
Mm-hmm.
I went back for the degree at IE University, um, mainly because what I noticed in my work was when you start working on like social media campaigns, those are communication campaigns, and
Mm-hmm.
especially in the world of technology, um, a lot of people learned as they went along at work, which is
Yeah.
great, and to be
Mm-hmm.
self-trained. But at the same time, there are certain gaps. And I realized that's why I went back to school, so I
Mm.
can get that more complete training of how should
Yeah.
this really work.
Mm-hmm.
And also understanding that we are, and it kind of leads to like where we are today
Mm-hmm.
with AI, right? And conversational UI. Um, at the time I started realizing like, hey, social media, it's all conversations.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where things are going. Like we are going to have more conversations, and it is worthwhile for me to better understand how do communications work in a business. Again, the more formal education. And what the bonus part of the education that I got that I didn't realize I was going to get was being the only American in the
Mm.
class.
Yeah.
I realized why we're disruptive
Yep.
very quickly. But the thing that I learned, I think, throughout the experience was realizing what it means to work in the world. And I already knew
Mm-hmm.
that from at the time working at HP and having partners in both Asia and the in the UK, and what the
Mm-hmm.
time differences meant and what it meant to be to them to work with American time. Um, that was disruptive for them. And I
Yeah.
think and because I was the only American and most of the class was in Europe, I was the one who was on that receiving end.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's interesting perspective to gain. I
Yeah.
guess, what did that teach you? What did that show you? I'm curious.
Um, what it meant to not be in the main time zone of communication, because we like to believe that, oh, well, we
Mm-hmm.
have this distributed virtual world, and yes,
Mm-hmm.
people do. The reality is there are time zones and people are working within a workday, right, across the
Mm-hmm.
globe, and
Yeah.
we're not always in a time frame for someone else's workday. And
Mm-hmm.
what does that mean with a conversation? Because sometimes I'd be in teams, they'd sometimes make a decision. I'd be fine with that, right? But I
Sure.
was like 5 hours behind. So I'm showing up
Mm-hmm.
when a lot of decisions were made or a lot of conversations
Yeah.
happened. And I got to have that experience that as Americans, sometimes we do to other
Do the same thing.
colleagues across the
Yep.
globe. And I know
Mm-hmm.
that I kind of knew some of this going into it, but after experiencing it more,
Yeah.
um,
Mm-hmm.
realizing that you do need to wait sometimes for your
Yeah.
colleagues in another time zone to make that decision, right? There
Mm-hmm.
are some decisions you cannot, you need them to bring
Yeah.
them along.
I and I know that it's not like within us to always want to put ourselves within the minority. But I honestly think for personal growth and professional growth purposes, the more you can put yourself in a room where you're the minority of that group, the better, because it's those insights and empathy that you're going to
Yeah.
gain that helps you understand where other people are coming from for those nuanced micro situations that you just don't even consider because you get to take whatever for granted. So yeah, I think that that's really, really interesting that you had that experience and that perspective. Let's talk a little bit about your consulting work and what you do. So right now, like most consultants kind of pick a lane. They either choose customer experience or employee experience, and you've always held both. What was there like a specific client or moment that made you see that these two worlds were really the same problem?
Yeah. So I'm going to say it started early in my career. It was my first job,
Mm,
my first real
yeah.
job. Let's put it that way. Right. So I was working at a chemical engineering software company. And I know that sounds like very dry. And at times when I'd work in marketing, yes, it was.
Sure. Right.
I was caught actually napping, reading a sales kit. That's how dry it
We've all
was.
been there.
When I first worked there, I was working within, they had a customer support call center.
Mm-hmm.
And all the people that worked there were like chemical engineers. Most of them had PhDs.
Mm-hmm.
And they were helping the customers that they had were like these chemical plants. And so they were
Mm-hmm.
helping them solve these problems that, that lives are at stake, right? There's bottom lines, right? So they're
Right.
doing some really big work.
Mm-hmm.
Well, there was one day, like there were some challenges in the group. It wasn't necessarily the group at first wasn't necessarily known for its great customer experience, right? Like there were a lot of efforts to improve the support metrics and all sorts of
Mm-hmm.
things like that. And everyone, again, it was the one of the most brilliant teams I've ever worked with, right?
Mm-hmm.
And everyone was great. Management was great. It was just how do we bring this together? And
Yeah.
there was one fine day that the tensions rose, and there was a shift where two of the people disappeared because they were working on a problem and they left
Mm-hmm.
their post and they didn't answer the phone and they left one poor support person to answer the
Mm.
phone for 4 hours. This guy got 19 calls.
Oh goodness.
Needless to say, after the shift ended, everything blew up.
Mm.
Everything blew up. So the next day, I was working with the managers because we were like trying to figure out what do we do, right? Because this is
Yeah.
bad, right? Where we've hit that. So we started talking with all the different team members, and we called it the etiquette. It was kind of like our way to bring everyone together. And what are the rules that we're going to follow in the group? Like you can't just leave and go solve a problem. You have to check with the people in your shift. And this sounds so intuitively obvious, but this way we all held each other accountable. And once we had this agreement amongst everyone in the team, right? Like you can't, before you leave, check with everyone that everyone's good that you go, right? That how long you're going to be gone. You can't be gone longer for an hour. We set up all these rules and agreements, and the team followed them. And I'd say within not even months, um, we were able to apply for an award, and they won. The team won. And so that's like such a testament to leadership coming together and the team coming together. So I
Mm-hmm.
kind of saw like their support metrics, and then everyone trusted them more, the customers trusted them more. So that's where you can start to see how everything comes together to create that great customer experience.
Love it. That's a great story and example. Let's shift over to the digital experience for a minute.
Yes.
It gets used often a lot, the phrase, more often than not, probably, especially in today's age.
Yeah.
How do you define it? And how do you know when a company is actually has one versus just kind of thinking that they do?
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. I would agree. That is, you know, I think this gets to how companies view their businesses. And do they see them as a back and forth with the customer, or is it just simply a transaction? And I I don't I don't think companies benefit from everything being so transactional. I think we were talking earlier, right? Even in the research, right? From what I've been reading, it's been going on for over 40 years in the research itself about the benefits of relationship marketing and building those connections, right? Because again, we're doing business with people, right? And people are buying a widget, but it they're having a relationship with the business or the people in the business. And I think whatever happens offline does go to happen online, right? That gets a direct translation. And I think what makes a great digital experience is that you're able to accomplish a goal and you realize like, hey, that helped me in my life. It's not like I was able to purchase but I was able to get something done and that helped me and that made my day better. Like, I think we'll just use as an example, let's say, what comes to mind right away is like Uber, right? And Uber's got a lot of problems. I'll just say that, right? There's a lot of challenges with the business model. There's a lot of challenges with how they're paying employees now. But one thing that's great and why people keep using it is that you have that engagement and that interaction with the driver. And if it's a great experience, well, then you'll go back and use it again, right? Because they also get you to your destination. So it's kind of like it's not just that transaction, there's more. So are companies necessarily doing that today? I don't think so. I think that we see our customer experience stats are dropping year over year. Forrester tells us that. To bring it back up, I think companies need to remember they're doing business with people. Mm-hmm. B2B or B2C, it doesn't matter. People are involved, right? And so how do you connect with people so that they are able to engage with your business and not just complete what they need to complete?
Yeah. It's so true because if you think about it too, like everybody's different skills, like level of skill set and understanding of digital experiences varies, but then a lot of thought doesn't really go into that. And then people are often coming to you if they're in a customer service situation where they're frustrated, which obviously like when you're mad, your IQ drops. And then on top of that, like just even the standard, like outside of customer service, the standard digital experience. I mean, I don't know. I feel like we were paying a lot more attention to it 10 years ago. It was of the utmost importance that everything was optimized for mobile and for ease of use. And now we have things like voice recognition and all of that. But somehow it seems like the experience has taken a back seat and people think that chatbots and AI are like the answer for all of it. So I'm kind of curious. This is kind of a bonus question. Well, no, it's not. It's me skipping ahead and how AI is reshaping what digital experiences even mean. How are you thinking about that for your own work and for the clients who are looking to you for answers?
Yeah, what you were raising, and I'll get back to the AI, right? Because we'll get to, and we were kind of talking about it a little earlier as well, about stats and looking at the metrics and the analytics and the results. And use as an example, I worked with one call center where they told me they thought their customers just didn't understand the field, that these customers, they weren't necessarily super qualified, right? And I got this whole story. I'm like, with a colleague, I'm like, what's this? Like, this doesn't make any sense. I'm like, for this particular field, you have to be licensed. You can't even use the software unless you have a license. So what is going on, right? And then when we looked at the metrics and the stats, come to find out, people were calling for very complex, in-depth questions that took hours to solve, or they couldn't understand their billing, which honestly, that was the feedback we got all along. So if you're not really looking at the stats, or you're looking at the stats, but you're not really looking at the stats, right? And this is where I think my suspicion is that in a lot of cases, when it comes to, let's say, phone systems, right? People are calling. That's why they always press 0. They want to talk to an agent. They want to talk to an agent because it's a complex problem. They would have solved it online if it wasn't. And yes, maybe the FAQs are insufficient. Maybe your knowledge base is insufficient, right? What exactly are people looking to resolve? And this kind of gets to AI. Like, these are tools, right? And also, even in conversations I'll have with clients or other people about, let's say, social media, right? Yes, social media, they have all sorts of gaming and all sorts of other things to get you into where they want to get you, right? And you just end up creating this ecosystem for yourself, right? But at the same time, it's a tool.
Yeah.
It is a tool. It is, and these tools reflect reality. And right, so even with AI, it's a tool. I get disturbed hearing how AI becomes people's friends. That's not what it is, right?
Nope.
Like AI is great to help with programming.
Hmm.
AI can be great to work with large pieces of data and
Yeah.
rearrange it or analyze it or give you some output. I've used it to, like, here's a bunch of data, give me a summary. And it does a pretty good job, right? But is it meant to necessarily help solve problems? I'll give a kind of a casual example of, there was an issue with my car, and I went and I
Hmm.
used the chatbot on 2 separate occasions and 2 separate Google accounts even to see what would happen. I got
Mm.
different advice.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, I mean, I'm kind of on the fence.
Hmm.
I think it's got some good uses, but it's a tool. So what do you want to use it for? What
Right.
do you want to achieve? What data are you
Hmm.
using? What's your data
Right.
set, right? Are you using the web where people say, oh, there's conflicting answers? Have you been on the web in the past 10 years? It's a cacophony
Hmm.
of noises and voices, and you've got to
Hmm.
suss out what's a good, like, what is let's say valid data, or what is something that has, like, let's say like some sort of reputation.
Hmm.
They've kind of pushed down academic data,
Hmm.
or like some of them, like, to push up certain blogs, which sometimes
Hmm.
I'm like, why are we referencing blogs? We should be referencing, like, what is a valid insights, right?
Hmm.
And it's coming from an academic institution, a publication, like something
Yeah.
not, my, even then, my opinion is,
Yeah.
that's okay.
Yeah.
I need
Right.
data to prove it.
Yeah. No, exactly. Exactly. Yeah, it's hard to sometimes just understand. I think it's like this information overload aspect, and I think we're using AI to kind of shortcut some things. And I think, like you said, it's such good advice to think of it as like it's a tool, but it's not the replacement. It's not the replacement for
No.
decision making. It's not the replacement for common sense.
Nope.
It's a tool. So use it as such. Let's
Yeah.
shift gears a little bit into how you work to also help leaders define and communicate their vision more clearly. In your experience, what gets in the way um, of that the most? And then is it like ego? Is it fear? Is it language? Is it something else entirely? Like what's holding them back?
I think it gets to acceptance of what's happening around. And this gets to looking at the stats and looking at the metrics and looking at at the data and information before you. And I think sometimes in organizations will have ideas about what should be, but then you have what is. And I think to get to your vision, you do have to have a sense of what is, who are your customers really. Like, you might have a good, like, idea of what you'd like them to be, but that doesn't mean that's who they are. So I think it kind of, that's what I kind of take all the time. Like, I will
Hmm.
accept what they're saying about where they want to
Right.
be, but this is where we're
Yeah.
starting. So let's
Yeah.
see how we get there.
It is really interesting too, because I think we fall short of that as marketers too. We're always looking at the audience we want versus the audience we have. And
Yep.
instead of trying to expand upon the existing audience that we actually have, it's always the aspirational audience that we're chasing after. It's always that avatar. But it's like, why aren't you maximizing the existing people that are here in that? Because those are your real audience members. It might not be as sexy as you want, might not be as idealized as you want, but that's the reality. And I think, I hate to say it, but the brands who've done it best, i.e., like Walmart, like they get it. They get their customer and they provide the prices and they don't do sales and they don't do coupons, but they still get seen as cheap. And it's like one of those things where I could go and spend the same amount on groceries as another grocery store, but it's that whole mentality. They understand their customers to that degree. And so, yeah, it actually serves you really well to know your customer well and to just kind of own it rather than try to like be like Walmart. Let's just try to do like a bougie end of the store. We're going to try to go a la Target. Like it's never going to happen, because it's a different audience altogether. And I think the brands that have embraced their audiences are the ones that kind of come out on top. So I think what you're onto there makes a whole lot of sense when you're coming from a space of trying to create and cast your vision clearly. I think you need to face the reality of what it is that you're looking at and what you're doing.
And to add to what you were saying,
Mm-hmm.
like your customers, like when you look at who your customers are, like they're craving for that connection. I think I have had more conversations with like customers, patients, and like medical systems, all sorts of people. And they all have the same thing. They want to meet each other. They want to engage with the organization. They all do. And like you said, like Walmart understands also how to connect to their customers, right? That is what most of the bigger brands, they understand who these people are and how do you connect with them and how do you engage with them. And yes, you have your aspirational, but your customers, like, what is it? What do they say? Always say like 80% of your, like the next round of business usually comes from your existing customers.
Yeah.
It's not
Mm-hmm.
from the new. Like you do have
No.
churn, yes, but most of it
Mm-hmm.
is from the same, it's from
Right.
your base.
Mm-hmm. Well, and
Like,
then Marketing 101 says that, what is it? Costs 10 times as much to get a new customer as it does to
yes,
maintain an existing. And yet we'll
yes.
just ignore the existing and keep looking at the grass on the other side to see if it's greener, always keeping our options open.
And it can serve to your to a company's detriment because then these
Mm-hmm.
people feel like the base feels neglected, and so
Yeah.
then your churn will go up, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
you're not helping them solve the problem that they
Mm-hmm.
have. There's a theory. What is it? Peak end rule, right? And I always find it interesting because it applies to customer service. Because I find
Mm-hmm.
customer service fascinating, right? Because people don't call you because they're happy; they call you because they have a problem.
Right. Yeah.
And
They're
so
not calling just to chat. What do you mean?
right. And I always find it fascinating. Like it's just stunning to me. To me, it's like the biggest paradox, right? Customers are calling because
Mm-hmm.
they're upset and they're
Yep.
aggravated. And if you solve that problem and you make them feel special in that moment,
Mm-hmm.
because they only remember the end and the most emotional part of the conversation, right? So if you make that
Mm-hmm.
emotional instead of like, oh, I hate you, but oh,
Yeah.
I love you because you solved my problem, and you make these two things like the end, uh, and then you stay and you're singing that company's praises. To
Mm-hmm.
me, that's the biggest paradox because if the company did a problem, like they did something disastrous, and you stay with them,
Mm-hmm.
to me that's
Yeah.
fascinating, right? Because
Yeah.
it's not it doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. And it's not like there's not a million choices. I think there's something too that's inextricably tied to, customer experience and internal experience, right? Because if the internal experience, if your employees are not happy,
Yes.
like that's the core
Yes.
of your
Yes.
business. And if they're not
Yes.
happy and not in a good place, that bleeds out into the customer
It
experience
does.
because it comes through in every little detail, not just the
Yep.
customer experience, but the digital experience as well, because they're
Yep.
not committed to making it the best possible because they don't give a shit because they're not
Yes.
happy because they've quit 10 months ago, things like that.
Yes.
We just don't think
Yes.
about. So obviously a lot of our listeners on the listening right now, so there's a lot of resource limitations right now. We've
Mhm.
talked about like supply chain issues and shortages and things like that. We're kind of all under a tremendous amount of pressure on teams. What is it costing organizations in concrete terms when the internal experience is broken and no one's naming it? Because that just sort of feels like one of the bigger, heavier things, kind of like the elephant in the room that's sitting in every meeting room outside of all the other things I just said that are happening in the world and affecting business.
So if we'll go back to the example earlier in my career, and I'll bring that forward to different things I've seen. But we can start there. When I first worked with the team before we had that meltdown day, um, they were struggling to get customers to pay for support. They weren't offering a great experience. People didn't really trust them, right? The customers didn't. So it didn't help make it worthwhile for someone to buy the software. But once they started winning awards, suddenly people, it is a spark to buy, right? To make that purchase because it is, that if you have a problem, someone will help you and you can trust in that. Um, I would say I see this in almost every organization that if you don't um, make it a great place to work, we can use an example like Zappos, right? So Zappos was a wonderful place to work. I am not so sure now because of where it's falling, right? But when it was first out, that was like the case study, right? Great place to work. They treated customers great. They made money hand over fist because everyone was happy and wanted, like you said, they wanted to put forward like the best experience possible to engage with customers because they saw, I think companies forget that companies are made of people, right? Customers are people, your employees are people, and without customers, the lights don't stay on. We don't like to say that, right? Which I find fascinating, right? And I think even shareholders know that if your customers aren't happy, the lights don't stay on. And if your employees aren't happy, they're not doing things to keep customers coming back. And it's just an ecosystem. And I think that's one of the things that I did get more of a sense of being in like a business school in Europe versus in the US. In the US, it's very money focused, right? In Europe, we were all taught about ecosystems. Like it was almost exhausting by the end, right? Everything's an ecosystem, right? And when you look at it that way, you make different decisions and you realize the connection between the ecosystem and the bottom line. And I would say, and I think another good one example would be like the Apple App Store. And we could also say the Google App Store, right? Because you have a developer community, you have the customers, and you have the employees, right? And you have to keep that in harmony so everyone's contributing. Customer data comes in, right? The developers use it. Apple uses it. Same with Google. The same thing is happening with Google too, right? Everyone's using the data, and then you have success because everyone's contributing, right? If you don't have venues for that and a way to respect everyone and want that contribution, you exclude people, and exclusion means I hate to say it, exclusion means no money.
Yeah. I mean, I think it should be boiled down to that because, we should also say on the flip side, inclusion equals money, people. The numbers tell us.
Yes.
Oh, goodness.
We've been having this conversation for 40 years. Anyway.
I know, right? And we just keep on beating that drum, Mary. All right. So this episode is called The Art of Acceptance. And that phrase means something specific to you and the work that you do. What does acceptance actually look like as a business strategy or a leadership practice, which is a great segue from our inclusion?
Yeah. So how I kind of got here, I originally wanted to write a book about listening. To me, listening is it's the core to my work. If I didn't have good listening skills, I wouldn't have clients, right? That's just the way it is, right? So I started writing this book and I'm like, oh my God, I'm just pontificating and it's boring. And I was reading and going, oh my God, who'd want to read this? So I'm like, there has to be something more to this. So I sat on it for a long time, actually, like what's going on when I'm listening, what's really happening? And what keeps coming to mind this was a while back when I first moved to Dallas. I went to the farmer's market and I met this woman who was selling like all these pickled good items, right? And I didn't know her from Adam, right? So she's a brand new person, right? And she has all these little tasting things, right? And I try some stuff. I'm like, wow, that's really good. And she starts sharing her life story and she got really in depth. And part of me was like, why is she sharing the story with me, right? What's going on? And I started realizing from there, I like heard other people's life stories. And I started realizing it's because I'm accepting them. I'm not looking at them like you're crazy or I don't think it's true. Like it's just I'm accepting what's being told to me, right? And this kind of gets to my favorite proverb, right? Where you have this farmer and his horse runs away and the village goes, oh, that's terrible. And he goes, let's see, right? And then that horse brings a bunch of horses back and everyone goes, oh, that's so great. And he goes, oh, let's see, right? And he goes to the farmer's kid, tries to train a horse. He breaks his leg. Oh, that's terrible, right? Then he doesn't get put in the military because of a broken leg, right? And it's kind of like not reading into stuff. And that's what I started realizing, like you can't, and I kind of find as a leadership strategy, it makes leading so much lighter.
Yeah.
and so much more fun because you're not
Mm-hmm.
sitting there trying to analyze why is this team member not doing. You just have the conversation,
Yep.
right? And just go,
Yep.
I don't understand. Like, and yes, I walk around perpetually confused all day. I swear,
Mm-hmm.
everyone, I go into meetings and I just go, I don't understand or I'm
Mm-hmm.
confused. And I swear everyone's wonders, how does she exist? That's all I say. I don't
Yeah.
understand. But you know what? It's easier and it's not my business
Mm-hmm.
to try to figure out what everybody's, what they're thinking. Like,
Right.
let's just
Right.
take people as they are, as
Mm-hmm.
they arrive,
Mm-hmm.
um, and not try to read into it and just accept
Yes.
what they're doing and showing us and accept what they're showing us, right? That's the next key to
Yes.
this,
That's the
right?
next part of it for sure.
Uh, because have had management and leadership situations where I had to accept what was being told to me. And
Sure.
yeah, it's not so great.
Sucky. Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, I do. I've heard that proverb, the maybe story of where, like, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
it's like maybe, maybe. And oftentimes we do. We tend to put narratives to things where there is no narrative, and that actually reduces opportunity. It
Yep.
makes us maybe pass on those things. It also
Yep.
kind of reminds me of the first time I got to hear Brene Brown speak before she kind of made it big. I was at a How Design conference, I want to say in like 20, well, I guess it would have been like 2014, 2015. And she was talking about like a coworker at the university where she was doing research in Texas. And she was talking about doing her research in shame and she was pitching it. And the woman who was with her was on her phone and just messaging and not paying attention. And Brene was so pissed off at her and was like, she's got something out for me. It's just because I'm another woman. She doesn't want me to be successful. And she just went home and was like bitching to her husband about it and all this stuff. And she sat down that night and she wrote this scathing email about how rude she was and how inconsiderate she was. And the woman wrote back, like, I am incredibly sorry. I really should have canceled that meeting. The reason I was on my phone is because our family dog had been hit by a car and we had to make the decision to put him down in that moment. I should have just put my phone down and told you what was happening and walked out of the room and saved the meeting for later. So Brene obviously felt like a big old jerk. But it's funny how one person's situation, losing a family pet, to this other person just looked like outright refusal to listen and to pay attention and to be present. But how easy would it have been to just be like, listen, I'm having this moment and I really need a time. I need to reschedule this. Or even for Brene to look at her and say, you know what? Something feels off here. I don't feel like you're really into what I'm talking about right now. Is this not the right time? Versus us making the assumption, assuming, and then, sort of accepting the situation for what it is versus putting a narrative to it.
Yes, exactly. Exactly that. Yes. It's, I think I'm glad you brought up that example. Because this kind of gets to virtual meetings. And I'll just do this because this is an example I use in the book is like virtual
Yeah.
meetings, right? And there are moments that there'll be discussions and it's hard to get a word in edgewise. I think we've all been where we're like, oh my goodness, like, will someone take a break? Right. And that can get misinterpreted on so many levels. And, I think one of the gaps in organizations, there really should be facilitators in these calls to pay attention to what's happening in the room. Because, people sometimes, I think they're all like, they don't intend to do certain things unless you start seeing a pattern, right? Now that's completely different. If you're observing a pattern, that's different. But let's say, someone just keeps talking, there's anxiety issues. We don't realize, the US is it's an incredibly anxious country.
Yeah.
And anxiety can come out in so many different ways that, people, I've noticed over talking, like again, oh my God, take a break. But just, how do you, if you can, try to have a facilitator or just try to be mindful?
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. And then I think acceptance too. I mean, you were talking earlier, your example about time zone difference, just being more accepting and understanding there, having some empathy, thinking about what it's like on the other side, showing people some grace. I think that's another thing too. Oftentimes, like, we've got our standards up so high. And I mean, everybody wants to be considerate. I don't think most people come in onto calls or meetings and they're like, I'm just going to make everybody pissed. No, like, it's just, there's always something else happening. It kind of also reminds me of, kind of like that practice of whenever somebody cuts you off in traffic or does something rude. I used to get so mad, but now I'm like, I can let that go. Like, honestly, I can let that go. Like there is something else on their mind, or they're on their phone, or they're in their whole own little world. And I'm not saying it's an excuse. It's just saying this is not something I can control right now.
Yes.
All I can control is how I respond.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. The world is bigger. And that's, I think, accepting that it's, I think a challenging line we've been fed is like the idea that the world works for you. And I found it lightened my load to let that go.
Yeah.
Like, no, it doesn't.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Yeah.
It's just there. Yeah. And you're doing what you can and trying to get through it. And so is everyone else in there. Right? Like you said,
exactly.
Like yeah.
We're all just out here trying to survive. Show a little more acceptance and understanding. Give yourself and everyone else a little bit of grace. Yes. All right. So when you're walking into like a new client engagement, what is it that you're trying to understand before any strategy or deliverable comes into that space? Is there like a question that you always like to ask that tends to crack things open? Like what helps you sort of get to the nitty gritty of maybe what they might be struggling with?
Yeah. Before I go in, what I've found lately is to make sure I check out their LinkedIn profile a little bit. To get an idea of sense of who they are, right? Or I hear through the grapevine who someone is, right? And then I'll listen and let them kind of drive the conversation, because they might what I get called in to do isn't what needs to be done, right? There is a bit of a misdiagnosis of the problem,
sure,
right? Or they think they know what the problem is, and then when you start listening, it might be a different problem, or that is one of the many problems that need to be resolved, right? There's other things happening. So how do you get that right? And so I listen a lot. I try to just basically understand their situation more.
Love it. All right, we're coming up to our last question, then we'll go into the power round. If you could leave every woman in our audience one shift, then how they could see themselves or their work, what would it be?
Accept yourself and make sure that you're happy with what you're doing and what your output is. I think there's so much pressure now, and it's not for perfection, right? Like one thing I noticed, especially with the rise of AI, is a lack of quality. And so if you're producing something that you think is high quality, right? And I think everybody should do that. Like, it doesn't have to be perfect, but you're pretty happy with the quality of it. Like, in general, I know with writing, I want to be sure it sounds pretty good, right? Grammatically correct. When I create a presentation, after a study, to document the study and present findings. How does this sound? Does it sound pretty good? Is it presenting some good insights? Can they do something with this? Right. And make sure I'm happy with it. And I think at times we're in this whole, fail fast and all that nonsense. Like, let's try. Let's try. Let's do it. Let's try to put our best foot forward.
Sure.
Not our perfect foot. Our best foot.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. Awesome. All right, Mary, I'm going to go into the power round now. Okay. These are kind of quick rapid fire question answers. One thing you have had to practice accepting that surprised you?
I think it's been more in the past few years, but how in the world we all don't share the same values. And we like to assume, and I didn't realize how much I did this. We like to assume that we all share the same values. Yeah. No, we don't. No, we don't. And it's not that, and once it's hard to accept, especially certain people close to you that you might want to think, oh yeah, we're all the same. No.
Right.
And once you accept that, the world becomes a very different place. And
Yeah.
it's not a scary place. It's just a different place.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of the world becomes a lot clearer.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. For seeing it for what it really is. Trust the data.
Yep.
Trust them
Yep.
trust what they're showing you. Believe it. They're going to show you. Believe it. All right. Finish
Yeah.
this sentence. The most underrated leadership skill is
Listening and acceptance.
Yay. And on that note, what's one sign that somebody is truly listening to you?
That's a great question. Thinking about this and looking at like being out in the world and, all this stuff, I would say this is going to sound weird because we're always told do the active listening and repeat back and blah, blah, blah,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I've been in so many situations where the person repeated back. No, they didn't.
Yeah.
Even me, like I repeated it back and no,
Mm-hmm.
I didn't. You know what? It's the emotional engagement. And I'm going to say that it's the emotional
I
contagion
love
and
that.
feeling that sense of emotion with other people. There's
Mm-hmm.
actually, to share, there's this theory, Randall Collins, and he did this interaction, ritual chain theory. And an example that he highlights a lot is, smokers. I know it's terrible. Right. But anyone who has been a smoker, right? They know when you go out to smoke, you all have that in common and you do have
Yep.
some type of emotional connection. It's more of a solidarity. It's not like your besties, right? But you have that
Sure.
solidarity. And I would say when you're in a meeting and there always is an emotional contagion, I think we don't like to talk about that. We like to think, oh, we're in business. We're so rational. Look at
Yeah.
that bottom line result. And again, like we share all the same values of what that looks like.
Mm-hmm.
Right. To some, it's a profit. To some, it's a revenue. To some, it's market share. Right. That's
Right.
not the same. But if we can leave feeling like we can do this and we're excited and we're happy to be here and we're happy to work with each other, I feel like, that's as odd as this sounds. Like, I think people leave those meetings and they listen to something. They heard something in those moments.
Mm-hmm. I love it. All right. My last question then that I have is one word that describes what acceptance has given you.
Peace.
Yeah, that's a good one. I agree. Love acceptance. I have like a whole talk that I did on mindfulness that's, it's yield to overcome. It's impermanence. It's like, I'm trying to remember, there was like 4 or 5 different parts of it, but a lot of it was acceptance and, acceptance of outcome or allowing just outcome to be what it needs to be and all that kind of stuff. There's an absolute freedom to all of that. So what a great word, acceptance. We appreciate it, Mary, and all of your amazing insights and your studies and your research. I'm so excited. Please keep in touch. I want to hear how everything goes with your research and you getting your PhD. I'll be calling you Dr. Brodie when you come back to maybe share some more about that and what your insights are. For now, what are some of the best ways that our listeners can get a hold of you if they want to talk more?
Oh, sure. You can reach me through email, mfbrodie, M as in Mary, F as in Frank, BRODIE @gearmark.com.
Perfect.
I am also on LinkedIn. Mary Brodie, you can find me. I'd say those are the best ways.
Fantastic.
Yeah. Awesome.
Well, thank you so much, Mary. This has been fantastic. Such a grounding and generous conversation. Thank you for reminding us that some of the most strategic work we can do as leaders is also the most human. It's great. Wonderful. All right,
Thanks, Amy.
everyone. Yeah, we appreciate you all. If today's conversation resonated with you, this is exactly the kind of dialogue we create every week inside Together Digital, a community of women who show up for each other at every stage of the journey. So whether you're just figuring things out, you're feeling a little stuck, ready to scale, or already soaring, you're going to find your people here. So again, you can find us at togetherindigital.com. We'd love to have you all. And until next time, everyone, keep asking, keep giving, and keep growing. We'll see you soon.
Produced by Heartcast Media.